unity that was coming out from everyone singing together, not just in Wembley Stadium, but the whole world.
Masterful leaders for men building business, family, and self. Hosted by Shimshon Meir Frankel.
Welcome to Masterful Leaders. Today's guest lives at the intersection of global entertainment and spiritual leadership. From roots in a family behind Live Aid to representing international artist Nissim Black, Eli Goldsmith understands influence at scale. But what makes him different is this. He doesn't build the stage inward, he builds from the home outward. As a father with sons on the front lines, and as the midnight rabbi to many, Eli embodies what it means to lead from the inside out. Today, we're getting into how he holds both global impact and a grounded life. Eli, welcome to the Masterful Leaders Podcast.
Really honored to be here. Should we call it MLP? Is that right? Would that go? When I think of Tony Robbins, all these guys that made such a big impact, they always knew how to really capture and phrase everything perfectly. So, he's a true master in terms of presentation and marketing. Where I'd like to begin is with a question. Your intro was appreciated, and so please lead the way, since you're the leadership podcast.
Yeah. So let's
go.
Let's start a little bit at home. So you operate in high-pressure worlds, global entertainment, crisis response, and at the same time, you're living home first, even with your sons on the front lines. What do you actually do to protect your Shalom Bayit when the pressure is that real?
So with everything, and including this podcast episode, we always need that heavenly help. Because I feel that we're in a generation where there's a lot of distraction, a lot of confusion, and the guidance that we need to be able to do what we're doing takes focus and tuning into the flow of what's beginning and on a daily level in terms of relationships, networking, the agency that I'm trying to build, Unity Bookings, Unity Marketing. I'm trying to help people connect to concepts of unity and people who represent that. United Souls is bringing souls together. So none of it contradicts what you asked very wisely about making sure that the relationship flow, which is another podcast I have, is in contradiction. The only issues are my own personal challenges, which every person should have, and that's part of being a human being. And Baruch Hashem, I have to thank Hashem that I've been given a very good soulmate who's given me the time and ability to dedicate to all these projects, from learning and growing in Yiddishkeit, which was the foundation as we first got married, and then beginning to teach and get involved with the Midnight Rabbi, all the time I had with holy other guides who helped me become, and my family become who we are, and then developing in the money world, in the profit, non-profit worlds, both of them, because I worked in both sectors, and to be able to give a full experience and not just half heart. I put my whole being into usually what I'm involved with. And in terms of where we are now, with technology being so impactful in our life, especially in terms of the marketing aspect and creating the tools to coordinate events and meetings and these kind of podcast episodes, which I've been coordinating for years for many artists, speakers, and there is a great potential in that space to scale, and I believe that it's got to be done right. It's got to be done with the right people. And the more we clarify who those people are, the more Shalom Bayit we'll have, the more foundation, because one of the hardest things to deal with is when you're working in a space where people are not always living up to the responsibilities, and that can be very challenging. So having healthy people in your space is one of the top priorities, and it gives you ability to have a good name, an honest approach, a transparent approach. And that's something which, takes time to work out. Who are the unifiers? Who are the people that really are mission based, and not really trying to select. I'm just trying to allow the divine flow of my life to attract those kind of people, and they'll make it themselves clear what they are, what they're not. Sometimes it'll take longer, and once we've homed in on where we're able to collaborate, it's a beautiful experience when we get an event done and everyone gets paid, and most importantly, the impact we have on the community. And that's the unifying factor, bringing people together. So once the value system is strong, I remember we had a conversation before this podcast episode, which we very much focused in on the value system that is the solid key to everything we're doing. It's the backbone. It's the guiding force, and that's what we're constantly working on. That's one of the reasons why I teach a lot and learn a lot, because I need to keep strengthening that value system myself, and sharing that experience with others is always very inspirational. But there's a lot of work to be done in the Jewish space, especially with all the changes going on in the global aspect. With the growing anti-Semitism, and there's been a switch in terms of things are more focused in on security. And after, October the 7th and the recent Iran wars, so there's been a lot of cancellations, a lot of rescheduling, a lot of challenges. It makes this business a very difficult business to be in. But it doesn't mean I'm giving up, because I know that long term, the vision of what I have is something which will always stand, even if, right now with just the logistics can be very difficult. And once again, my wife is supportive in that process, even though it's been challenging. And we see a lot of miracles. A big part of the last few years has been focusing on, as you mentioned, my son's on the front line. One of them is, thank God, is not in that time period now, like he's after his service. But I have a third son who's just starting his service, so just getting my mind around the continuance of that challenge of having a son in the army and at a time of war. But it's a very powerful time as well, because you realize you're part of a bigger team, a part of the people of Yisrael, and we have a mission as a people, and security is definitely a big factor. So that goes together with trying to create events. Doing online events has not always been, the best thing. We saw that with Corona. That was also a challenging time. It does work on some level, and it's definitely a lot of room for improvement in terms of technologically and building the spaces that really impact people. I think the long form podcast space is like this kind of space is really going to be a very powerful form of impacting people, and also the being real with the nature of people nowadays, that they need short form clips and shorts and all the other reels and TikTok clips, whatever it is. All those kind of short form WhatsApp status content is where people are often scrolling through and experiencing. So we have to condense everything and be more focused in on what is really going to inspire people. And on a time effective level, learning how to get that communicated, different speakers, different inspirational people, and developing that side of things. I think that's something very important nowadays, and realizing that music is on a journey, like the music world, especially the Jewish music world, and it's not really fully at a place that I'm personally happy with. I think there's a lot of talented people, but we haven't yet coordinated and collaborated and organized it in a way that really can inspire and channel a lot of talented people to get more and more opportunities. So there's definitely a lot of work to be done in that whole space, and making sure everything's done in the most honest, straight way, with all the challenges that I mentioned before, cancellations, rescheduling. There's a lot of work to be done, and in terms of scaling, it takes a lot of continual communication to all the key people, but also knowing that some of the people are maybe not the right people to be too focused on, because it has to be done with, once again, the priority is always that value system, and that gives it that elevation, that we're not trying to just make money, we're trying to share truth and love and unity, and that takes a lot of self-restraint. You can't just take every deal or do everything that's offered to you. You have to think out, is this the right partnership? Is this the right group of people? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't work, you have to keep still positive with the people. No public, displays of where it went wrong. Always keep everything darkish shalom in the peaceful way. And one of the most important things I do is I pray a lot for all the people I work with, and put a lot of tefillah in. And that most importantly comes back to the family as well, the Shalom Bayit. You have to once again invest in prayer, in simple prayer about your wife, your kids, your own personal situation. The more a person works on all this that we've discussed, I feel that then success will come from a real place. And that's also a big word, is patience. Patience with the process, not pressuring yourself to just spread yourself out everywhere and try, get every single deal and every single opportunity. That's not what it's about. To be happy for others when they're doing well, and to support other people. One of the biggest things I try and do online is to be supportive to everybody, and even people I've had harder times with, to still show my support and love, because in the end everyone needs to have some success in life, and we want the best for everybody. And keeping that unity focus, that we are a people that support each other, and there's a bigger mission here, not getting pulled into the smaller mission.
It really sounds
of what's in front of us right now.
So it really sounds like impact is your thing, and I'm so impressed with your inside out approach. You start at home, then you're thinking about your community, your people, and then you're moving globally, but you want to touch people from a deeper place. You had mentioned to me in the past that you were putting a book together, something about souls and unification. It makes me think of Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, philosopher, theologian, who believed in something called the universal unconscious. But when I listen to you, I would say no. Eli has an approach which is the universal consciousness. Does that ring true for you?
Yes, we definitely are experiencing a change in consciousness in the world right now, and as much division and negativity that unfortunately some people feel that's worth putting time into. Obviously, the battle is to choose the side of good, the side of unity, the side of truth, facts, historical realities, and to not get confused by the fake or AI generated nonsense that's going on out there, and being able to really tune into where the human consciousness is pure and true. And that's why the key of my book, United Souls, is to bring everyone to the soul level, because on the human soul level there is no ego, there is no agenda, and the human soul level is where people can really find true blessing, true happiness. Working with Shmuel Diamond, for example, he has Journey to a Blessed Life. I'm helping market his content, and we just recently got a course to over 500 sign-ups together, and we'll please God be doing many more. But the main point is that he is bringing together very universal principles, similar to what you said about Kol Young, because I also work with Gedalia Fenster, who also quotes in his new book, Surrender, Kol Young many times. And in terms of bringing together those kind of personalities who are impactful and understanding that their content is coming from the soul as much as it's coming from universal principles, like from Stephen Covey all the way to Manis Friedman or Chabad, and then that's more Shmuel's thing, and then you have Gedalia Fenster's from, he'll quote from David Hawkins to every kind of big influence. Eckhart Tolle is a big one that both of them quote from, and all the way to Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. And I see those two pillars of Chabad and Breslov as very fundamental in all the learning and teaching I do, and also mainstream Hasidus, because I, Baruch Hashem, have a Rebbe, a Sodek, a Kohen, and is a big sefer that I'm very into, and my Rebbe, the Tolner Rebbe, and being able to bring together that kind of inner content, that is very much giving the right hashkafa, in my opinion, the right outlook for our generation, being able to see how it unifies with modern day thinkers, even if they're not alive right now, but their legacy and their thoughts, and many who are still alive, thank God, to take their concepts and thoughts that are true and that will help humanity and unify humanity, and to bring them together with Torah leaders like Rabbi Nachman and Chabad Tzaddikim, and in the mainstream Hasidus. But that also doesn't negate all the other parts of Torah. There's, like, was in the yeshiva world, so I have a respect for that derech of Vilna Gaon. I'm named after the Vilna Gaon and Rav Dessler. And then there's the Sephardi world, obviously, and all the Sephardi Tzaddikim, and to be able to appreciate the Ben Ish Chai or Zera Shimshon. I helped market the Zera Shimshon for a bunch of years, which is very much in the derech of Pilpul, and so that bringing together all different paths of Torah, unifying Torah, it also takes humility, and a person has to learn to listen to all kinds of people. One of the big steps I've made personally is to move to a frat the last 3 years with my family. We did that together as a family, and to find a community like Rav Shlomo Katz has been building, the Shirat David, and a place where there's a lot of unifying thoughts of Torah, Rav Kook's Torah, the Torah of Eretz Yisrael, start to meet all kinds of different people in that world, and getting the support that I had the last 3 years with my son in the army from the community, and now my new son, the community, the Rav himself, Rav Shlomo, just in the Shir today, like, gave a big, strong mention of my son starting the army, and he didn't have to do that in a public form with it being recorded, but that's the kind of support I'm getting, and it just makes a big difference. It gives you ability to scale, because once again, it's based on real relationships, and that's one of the things I'm trying to keep focused on, is the real relationships and not all the social media noise. Because example, Rav Shmuel Diamond, Rav Manis Friedman is boosting some of our posts, but it's not Rav Manis Friedman himself, it's probably his son Zalman or his team, and they're helping Shmuel now by boosting it on social media to get a bit more of an audience. But the real key is, once they meet the speaker, once they hear the person on real time, either online or in person, which ultimately we'd like to have more and more events. I'd like to bring Gedalia to London. I'm still working on that. There's an event, Gedalia in South Africa, a retreat we're working on, and trying to bring them to more communities so they get to meet them in person, hear from them in person, and not just this online way of experiencing content. I think that the Jewish world also has to expand our creative outlook and try to bring together much more the comedy world, because that's becoming a powerful form of entertainment. So we have to figure that one out. I don't think I've really got the whole picture yet, but there's definitely a lot of talented people, and we can start to find a kosher way of working with comedy, because the music world, I think, is where it is, and the speaker world is where it is, but I think the Jewish comedy world is still, there are people who know more than me, but I think there's more to be done. And as Robin Williams says once, why would you want to destroy the Jewish people to the world? He said it to the world. They're the funny people. We have to be real, that we have a sense of humor that's unique, and we have a place to get rid of some of the heat and the fire that's going in the wrong direction. Through humor, you can diffuse that and healthily express yourself. So I think and also entertain people, bring people to a good energy. Getting people to a good place is very important, giving people outlets. And obviously there's the whole thing of making it kosher with the Jewish world. That's where we always struggle with. But I think if people once again have the right value system, and that's what we're giving over, like you said about the book, United Souls, if it's coming from the soul level, then even humor has a place. Like, it's not, the soul doesn't just mean like pristine, pure, like no personality. It's very much the essence of who we all are. It's our chelek elokai memar mamish, but it has its unique expression, and that will come out in all the different avenues of how we express ourselves and become a light to the nations, which is what we are here to do.
And what this reminds me of is, and if it's okay if we do a little deep dive into this unity that you've been describing, and its impact, this idea that Chazal tell us that we're all intertwined, revim ze b'ze. So, which of course is usually to teach us that we have an obligation to one another. But there's this famous, I was thinking about the Ramach, Rabbi Chaim Cordovero. He says in his Tamor Devora, "She'anishamos kalulois yachad, yesh beze chelek ze uveze chelek ze." That the neshamas are all bound as one. And one has an aspect of this one, and in the other one has an aspect of him and him. So I think an amazing idea that we're all interconnected, and as you make your efforts to reach out to people out globally, you're touching that chelek elokal mimal that you're talking about, that spark that's in all of us, but really it's kind of like a reflection of what you're expressing in the world, and the people you're helping to get their voices out there, get their messages out there, is simply there to remind people, reflect back to them that we're all in this together, and that we're moving towards something really big. And so I think it's an amazing approach that you have. And would you say your book?
It can be challenging.
Tell me a bit what the biggest challenges are.
Because the book, because the book is one to be able to bring it over in a way like I had it edited through AI, and it condensed it so much that it said the main points, but I didn't feel like it was me. Mm-hmm. So, I'm constantly trying to experiment. How can I get this book communicated? I use this a platform called Substack, where I just post every month or so extracts with different clips of media of what I'm up to and all the different Unity projects I'm involved with. And people can read, a few extracts from the book. I haven't put out the full book, publicly yet. And it's still a work in process, because I'd like to really get the message clearer and clearer. I've been writing it since, when Corona began, 2019, 2020. It was a good way of challenging those later nights, when you haven't been as active. So you need to, and I realized that the biggest comfort to the soul when we weren't able to connect physically was at least we should have a soul connection where we are united. And that concept of unity you mentioned, of unifying everyone on the inner level, that is a very powerful concept that all the Tzaddikim, especially the Derech of the Baal Shem Tov, talks about in terms of the getting into the yichud, the unification, and finding the chad, the aleph within everything. Being that my name is Eliezer, so I have two alephs, as my first letters. So that's something which I'm always pursuing, which is the aleph. Rodef Hashem. We have to pursue Hashem, pursue Hashem's oneness, His unity, His godly spark within the people we're dealing with and the business situation, seeing the Hashgacha Pratz's divine flow, allowing ourselves to be part of that, experiencing that in unity in work, in business and relationships. And that's something which is a constant, bikush, an idealism that I feel that world needs to learn more about. Like if you Google unity, it's a very unused concept, and other than a software company, there's not really much working with unity, because it's not what sells, clickbait media. It's not what is being marketed on the general level. But I want to change that, obviously. The soul conversation needs to become more part of human conversation. People need to hear more from the neshama, the soul, and not so much their ego of what they think they need to do to fit into the current trends of the communities. There needs to be a much deeper expression, and people need to be more confident with that expression, that it will help them become more real with their soulmate. If their soulmate is tuned into this, then they won't have to go on all these expensive programs and holidays and showing off on Instagram or whatever it is, because they would get fulfillment on the soul level. So the whole infrastructure, the whole consumer focused culture will switch. So it's a very important, like the future of humanity, instead of all this environmental and all this, politics focus, if people would be more soulful, then already they'll take care of their environment. And the politics will get more elevated because people will be holding in a more true, real place. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to get that more communicated, that mission of the soul, that it wants to unify, it wants to have peace, and there's a time for war as well, and removing evil that reveals itself as anti-soul. I want to change anti-Semitism to anti-soulism. Mm-hmm. The real war is with people who are anti-soul. It's not a Semitic thing, it's a soul thing. They're against other people. As Charlie Kirk was an example, being killed. He was a soulful person, they killed him. We could go through a long list. Anyone who's more soul-based is going to have problems in the world, because there's an anti-soulism, and that includes all of humanity. So we have to realize that we're at that time in history where the voice of soul is much less stronger, less powerful on an external level. But the Tzaddikim encourage us and tell us on the inner level, like the Yiddish Kodesh says, that on the inner level, the soul level is becoming purer and purer and purer. And we're actually connecting in more and more deeper. Like you mentioned earlier, the universal consciousness of humanity is growing. Like I met this guy a few years back in Israel. I went out my way to meet him in place called I think it was Ashdod. I was in Yerushalayim. I was at a dinner table. I saw he was there. I jumped in a taxi. I watched a bit of he was in a sports thing, and then I went up to him. His name's Lewis Howes. Now, he's not Jewish. He's not so involved with our world. He did recently put on that Dr. Edgar, the lady from the Holocaust who just passed away. She was 90 in her late 90s. He did put her on a podcast, and he did a tribute to her. So he does have a respect to our people, and one or two of my friends have been involved with him, even done some work with him. But I'm just saying he talks about this consciousness, and I think there's a lot of people who are aware of it, that there is a changing consciousness, and it can't get taken over by any agenda or politics or control or power-based people. It needs to come from people who are sincerely dedicated to sharing it for the sake of Hashem, for the sake of their soul, for the sake of humanity, for a larger purpose, for just personal well-being as well. It seems more selfish, but we have to start with ourselves. So after loving other people, first you have to love yourself. So we have to tune into that, and that developing more of a self-awareness is a very powerful tool. And once again, all these goals and missions will be achieved through, as you mentioned at the beginning so wisely, the foundation is good. The Shalom Bayit, the marriage, the journey you go on with your soulmate. And if you're struggling with that, you have to really work on it. Pray for it. If right now you're currently going through the opposite, like divorce, or you haven't found your soul partner, it's something to work on and pray and invest time in, because it's the key to everything. Now, does that mean that everything else will be solved? No. But once you've got that structure, then you can build. because then you're having Shabbos at home and you're having Yom Tov at home and you're experiencing the light of a family experience without any technology. You're disconnected to reconnect. And this is, our generation needs to be so strong about that. And that from all the way from children upwards to older people, we all need to make boundaries with technology and bring more soul to technology, because technology is not going to give soul. That's where it's lacking. That's where it needs us. We have to realize it's going to become more and more of a voice in our experience. So we have to put that technology into its place, that it needs our soul. It can't do any good without soul. Like everything in this world, everything is klipas noga, is neutral. If we put soul into it, it will get elevated. We put ego, it will go down. So edging God out is ego. So we have to bring that godly experience into everything we're doing, and that's making this world a dwelling for Hashem, making ourselves more connected, and it will bring, a truthful message in our communication of politics or communication. There's so much work to be done on this level, like finding a good Jewish spokesperson right now who's really based on values and not just trying to get views or trying to get, build their influencing powers or whatever it is, like to not focus in on that, but rather focus in on the truth of what we're sharing and see that grow because of people's need for truth and not need for another person to follow. So that's where we need to start, working hard as a people, not get pulled into the current trends, be more individual in that sense, and make true decisions about why we're doing what we're doing. And I think a lot of artists and speakers that I'm connected with, that's what they're trying to do. Like Shmuel Diamond, he doesn't even have a smartphone or iPhone, and I'm doing all that stuff for him. Gedalia Fenster is, if you pay attention to his schedule and his lifestyle, even though he's in a different wealth bracket, but he's on how he lives it's all about avodas Hashem. It's all about serving God in such a space of business, and the priority is always. My wife even said to me this morning, as an example, she said, before you get busy with the marketing Shmuel stuff, first go swim. And if you have a bit more time before you have to get to Shacharis, then you can take care of that. I knew I had a podcast today. I in a short moment, I have a learning partner that someone in the community learns with me. And then I have a proposal I need to prepare to work maybe with Yitzhak Ginsburg or some other ideas that are going around. There's so much to do in a day, and still, then we got Mincha Marv, and then I have my own teaching session where today we're going to learn Tanya. And then in the evening, there's also a SEP. I don't know if you've heard of that, but like you get a program where you get smicha or some sort of halakhic, level of understanding of Judaism that is important as well. So that's just in one day. Plus, there's all the business stuff going on around that. With the artists, there's a long list of artists I'm working with, like for years was Nissim Black, and then more recently I've been working last few years with Alex Clare, Matziel's sons, Levi Miller and Dovber Miller. I've had a bunch of other artists that, you can see on my website, all the different ranges of people. One or two have come and gone, but majority are still there, thank God, and we're still in good relationships with everybody as best as I can and in the space that it is. And then there's a bunch of speakers who I believe in, like Avi Abelo and Yishai Fleischer, and obviously Rav Shlomo Katz, and I'm putting on an event in Tel Aviv for the first time in a few years. I haven't worked with Rav Shalom Arush. I was his main guy for about 5 years in the Brez of English, and now I'm doing an event for another organization in Tel Aviv, Rabbi Hill's organization, J Tel Aviv. So I'm helping them put on an event to bring Rav Arush to Tel Aviv, trying to broaden the impact and make sure that it's once again with people that we can unify with. And it's not always easy, because once you bring the money factor in, there's challenges. And that's to answer your question earlier about scaling. You have to have halacha in terms of contracts and, be very transparent and clear with people. And if things don't work out, to be responsible as best you can. Now, I don't always have the money, so I can't always control exactly what everybody decides to do. But I always aim to try to do the right thing in every situation. And even if it's a loss, in a financial sense, because in a long-term gain, it's a long-term picture. It's a big gain because we're doing the work for Hashem and not our valuation of it. And this just picks up the whole experience, because there's so much to do. There's so many talented people that need to be out there more. In the meanwhile, I'm supporting a lot of them to get them actual events. It's a hard space. As I said, security issues have come up now as a factor, and the funding's not always there. So the Jewish world, in my opinion, needs to step up in its funding. I think that the broader world needs to pay attention more to our wisdom. I think instead of watching all these podcasters who claim they know who we are, like, I'm not going to list all these people, but you know who they are, the woke right, woke left, whatever it is, all those kind of guys, instead of them being the voice of describing of who the Jewish people are, just come and have the humility and bring us to your community. We'll speak to you. We're available. There's so many good speakers. Let us come and actually discuss in person, like Charlie was doing before he was killed. Let's go. Let's talk, instead of relying on liars and people with agendas to describe our people and what we're about. And we need to become the messengers of our own message. And our messenger is always reminding ourselves that there's the real messenger, and we're just a messenger for that messenger, and the ultimate messenger of unity. So, we're here to share that truth, and it will bring people a lot of comfort to know that there is truth in the world, and that people don't have to feel so lost, especially the new generation.
This sounds like a really good teaching moment. I'm starting to hear from you that a masterful leader is someone who is soul driven. But I'd really like to define our terms. Like, what is the soul? Is it me? Am I the soul? Is it something that's inside of me that's extra? Is it a tool that I can use? How would you describe the soul to our listeners?
So I think this will be the defining end point of this episode of us together, because I have to go. But just to end off, I would say that this would probably be the most important takeaway, that if a person can develop more relationship with soul, and that will come through their own inner development of thought and truth, in terms of learning spiritual texts like Torah, spiritual guides like special rabbonim or speakers who are up to it. You have to do a clarification, but everyone needs to have a bit of discretion themselves of where the truth lays and where it's coming from. Filter out a lot of noise. But the soul is that still true person within, and obviously you have to be aware of the spiritual system where the soul, it's more there in the mind and the right side of the heart, as Tanya describes. It depends which school of thought you're going with. It's going to find its expression in prayer through hisbodedus and communicating with God, hisbodedus, developing a bigger vision of what life's about. The soul is everything true that you've ever said, or any moment of real love, of real giving, of real connection. It's without the ego. It's without, as Eckhart Tolle goes into the whole thing about the pain bodies. The soul has a lot more to share than we allow, because in order for it to communicate fully, we have to create the right place for it to come through, and that means we have to purify a lot of or clarify a lot of our character traits. We have to clarify a lot of what we're consuming. There's a lot of clarifications to be done on an individual level: how we eat, how we drink, how we sleep, exercise, lifestyle. There's a lot of work to be done to give a place that the soul can feature more and it communicate more. And we need to find a soulmate to experience that with. The soulmate will often be the reflection of how much soul we are developing. If we're more soulful, then we'll have more of a connection with our soulmate and our children and our loved ones. If we're less soulful, more ego-based, then usually that's going to create that division, that divide within the home. So it's very important that we learn to listen and to communicate in a soulful way, in that soulful language. The language of the soul is love, is truth, is connection, is warmth, is empathy. It's all the good attributes of humanity. And the other language is anger and fear. And, it's almost like, we're talking about the good side and the dark side. We got to do that clarification within of where we want to invest our time, our thoughts, our energy. And there's ways to develop and strengthen the good side within us, as we said, the Torah, the tefillah, the prayer, the acts of kindness. There's certain pillars that we have that will strengthen that. And if we're actively, in a proactive way, doing what we need to do in our daily life, that strengthens like a muscle. I work out in the gym, muscles start to get bigger and good. But we have to do that with our emunah, with our betochen, our trust, our faith system. We have to exercise it daily. And that takes a lot of connection to people who are of soul. Seek out those people of soul. Make them your role models. Bring them into your guidance. Don't make the wrong people your role models. Like an Andrew Tate. I've got a long list of who are the wrong people. There's always something that they're saying that you resonate with, otherwise they wouldn't have any following. But it's surrounded by a lot of ego, a lot of negativity, a lot of divisiveness that's not going to help you with your own relationships. So you have to do that clarification, be around those people who demonstrate that and live that. Have a friendship circle of people that are compassionate and caring and soulful. And it strengthens that side of humanity that is going to be the future of humanity. If you go on a Joe Rogan episode and listen to him, and he'll go on and on about these aliens and their heads, the giant heads and the little bodies. If you go to our Torah, it says the Shem La'asid of the Shem Havai of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is going to be Yihya, Yud-Kei Yud-Kei. The whole in the aspect of the body and the character, emotions, are all going to get elevated. So we are going to become more Mochin, more Chabad Chochmah Bina Das, more Keser Chochmah Bina, more higher levels of experiencing Musagim of connection to God. And the Jewish people themselves will have to be less and less, and we're seeing technologies proving this, less and less involved with the physical aspects of the world. So we will become more elevated, but to understand that it's a manifestation of soul levels rather than just these aliens from some other weird place. It has to make sense of humanity and the ultimate destination, unification, which is where we're always destined to head towards. So it's just a matter of us tuning into that true journey, and then someone like Rogan can start to learn about this, and that will change the whole world, because there are more and more of these podcasters start to hear the truth instead of some Jewish guy going on there and talking about politics and trying to justify why he eats kosher food, which is just some superficial aspect of Judaism. It has to be the soul. It starts to communicate, and that's really what they deep down everyone wants to know. I asked someone recently, I said, do you think he really wants to know that? They said, no, they're not interested. Mm-hmm. But I actually think they do. As you mentioned at the beginning, Carl Jung is an example. The human consciousness is thirsty for consciousness. And that's what it wants. And we need to be there, either through music, through art, through entertainment. One of the reasons why I love music so much is because I know that it's a powerful way of influencing, impacting, like you said at the beginning, because it brings people together. I mean, I love music just as a form of entertainment as well, but the experience of bringing people together, the joy of seeing Jews together and human beings together. Yeah. When I was at Live Aid, I didn't talk so much about my background, but I grew up in the entertainment industry. My family is still there. And at Live Aid in the VIP in the box, a few rows behind Prince Diana and Prince Charles, who's now the king, and I was in that experiencing Queen singing, not the Queen, the band Queen, and they're singing "We Will Rock You" or all the different big chants. We are the champions. You feel that unity that was coming out through everyone singing together, not just in Wembley Stadium, but the whole world. and because it was streamed, it was one of the first time anything had been streamed the whole world through satellite. And we have that technology now. Not to use it more to unify humanity is such a mistake. We have that ability, but it has to, once again, I don't think Freddie Mercury's up for the unification process. Definitely had the talent, but he didn't have the values. So that's where, once again, the person who's talented needs to also combine that with values. But that's part of our job as well, to communicate the values more. So then the musicians, the talented people, will be more unified and unifying, and their value system will live up to the test of humanity and time. And I think that we're getting to that point. I think that we have to start making those choices, and for our own success. So I'm available to discuss all these concepts, to bring those kind of personalities that I mentioned on my website. I'm available to share that light to the world. I book. It's a very easy process how I do the bookings, and the finances obviously have to be there. Has to be some form of budget. I can't do anything for free. But at least these kind of conversations we can have where there's not a money aspect. We can just, podcast has always, thank God, has been a bit more of a space where we can communicate without overly thinking about the money side of it. But I still feel that there's so much to do. We're like just at the beginning. Rev Shlomo Katz always says to me, Eli, we're just at the beginning of his community, what he's trying to build as a people. Even this country, this Israel, is just at the beginning. We're still not clear about our mission fully as a people. So there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of work. And the new generation, my sons, who I dedicate this whole podcast to, my son's success and the army and my daughters and everyone in my family, I dedicate everything we've spoken about, to their success, because the next generation, they're going to be the masterful leaders. They're going to lead us all. They're going to have the leadership. And we have to make sure that they're hearing truth, they're living truth, and that they are able to make choices that bring them to more unity, more values, and more happiness, more fulfillment. And we have to do our best as fathers and mothers and soul teachers to communicate that truth. And it's happening. The last 3-4 years, there's been a massive change of consciousness in Israel, and I feel that my family are becoming leaders in that new change of consciousness. And it's not, we're not, once again, we're still growing, but it's getting there.
Mm-hmm. So you're creating or at least getting involved in this soul movement. And I would like our listeners, when they're excited about joining this soul community, this unification, that they reach out to Eli. I will put down his links to his website.
Yes, please.
And other links to get even bigger taste of what Eli's trying to do universally and globally.
Yeah, every day there's classes, right? Every day there's classes. Every day, every month there's a book extract put out. I make a lot of effort to put all my content out there and all the people I'm connecting with. I'll even share a bit of personal stuff as well, because the real kishkas of what we're going through with, marriage and, personal challenges of bringing up children in the war and financially all the struggles that people go through nowadays, and being real. And that's a very important aspect. The soul is very real. There's no pretending. So I would love more people to get in touch, not because, once again, I need to build a following, but just because I feel there's so much light that needs to be shared. And if it inspires someone else to also share their flow, to also share their unity mission and their relationship flow and their Shalom Bayit and their energy and their passions and talents. And that's, once again, most of the time I'm promoting others. It's not about me. It's promoting talent and truth and finding ways to get it out there in a way that works for communities and people. So that's the main. Unity Inspires Projects is the main, umbrella of everything, and then it branches out to different projects.
Okay, so everyone who wants to help us in this soul-driven movement, reach out. Give Eli a shout out. We're really looking forward to, because it sounds like the idea of the soul is to move, as Eli's saying, move towards a place of truth, and unification. So let's get together, and I'm looking forward to hearing the music that Eli's talking about.
It's not that complicated. I mean, it's not that complicated. It's simple. You know, part of being a masterclass in leadership is simplifying everything. So I'll just end off with a very simple concept. Unity is on the thought level. On the level of soul, everything's unified. Inspires is about bringing inspiration, communicating inspiration outwards to the people through music, through entertainment, through truth. And then projects is bringing it down to practical, how you build a home, how you build a community, charity, all the good things that Jewish people and the humanity are capable of building amazing projects. But it comes through machshava diba ma'aseh, through thought, speech, and action, but it's always sourced in unity and soul.
Okay, well, Eli, it's been an honor and a pleasure speaking with you and hearing your very inspiring words. And we're very much looking forward to
Appreciate it.
The greatest unification that you're describing. Yeah.
On Masterful Leaders, we believe true success is built across every part of life, not just business. If this episode added value to you, subscribe, share it with someone you care about, and join us next time as we continue building the full package.